My phone buzzed in the pocket of my old blazer, just as I lifted a forkful of mashed potatoes at my son's dining table in Los Angeles. I smiled, half apologizing to the family, but when I saw the caller ID, Martha, my next-door neighbor in Glendale I hesitated. Martha never called at night. "Hello," I answered. Her voice trembled. "Daniel, are you home?" I glanced around the table. My son, Leonard, was laughing with his wife about some joke I didn't catch. My grandkids were chasing peas with their forks. It was warm, lively, noisy. "Home?" "No," I said gently. "I'm having dinner at my son's house." There was a pause, then a whisper that froze the blood in my veins. "Then who's inside your house right now?" My name is Daniel Mercer, and I'm 58 years old. For the last 30 years, I worked as an electrician, climbing poles in the scorching California heat, fixing broken lines when storms knocked out power, crawling into crawlspaces most people wouldn't dare enter. I built a life with my own hands, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. And the house Martha was talking about? That little one-story place on Maple Street, that was my pride. Paid off, after decades of sweat and overtime. My wife used to say it would be the only thing I could leave behind for our son. But my wife, Eleanor, passed away 8 years ago. Heart failure. Too sudden. Too cruel. And ever since, it's just been me, Leonard, and that house. Now Martha was telling me there was someone inside. I stood so abruptly my chair scraped the hardwood. "What do you mean, Martha?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but my hand shook around the phone. "I saw the lights turn on," she said, "and shadows moving in the hallway. I thought maybe you'd come home early. But if you're not there..." I could hear her breathing hard. "Stay inside," I told her. "Lock your doors. Don't go near the windows." My son, Leonard, finally noticed my face. "Dad, what's wrong?" I ended the call and turned to him. "Someone's in my house." For a moment, the table went still. Forks hovered. My daughter-in-law, Denise, set down her wineglass carefully, almost too calmly. And then, Leonard laughed. "Dad, come on," he said. "It's probably nothing. Martha's dramatic. You know how she gets." I stared at him, stunned. She wouldn't call unless she was sure. "I need to go." "Dad, sit down, finish dinner," he insisted. His smile was tight, but his eyes didn't match. "It's late. Don't work yourself up." Something twisted in my gut. My son used to race across the lawn to protect me if I so much as stumbled on the porch steps. Now he was laughing, brushing it off. Denise folded her napkin, her lips curling. "He's right, Daniel. You worry too much. Maybe it's just a raccoon." But I knew better. My house was sealed, the doors locked, the alarm armed. Nothing and no one should have been inside. I grabbed my coat from the chair. "I'm going," I said. "Leonard, drive me." He leaned back, shaking his head with that same infuriating smirk. "Dad, you're overreacting. If it makes you feel better, I'll swing by tomorrow morning with you." Tomorrow morning. By then whatever, or whoever, was inside would be gone. "Fine," I said, my voice low. "If you won't drive me, I'll take the bus." Denise scoffed, muttering something under her breath about old men and their paranoia. I ignored her. My heart was hammering. I knew in my bones, something was wrong. By the time I stepped outside, the cool Los Angeles night air hit me like a warning. The laughter from inside the house spilled onto the porch, muffled as the door closed behind me. I stood there under the yellow porch light, staring at the empty street, and pulled out my phone again. My thumb hovered over 911. But I stopped. If I called the police and it turned out to be nothing, I'd look like a fool. If it was something, would they even get there in time? I'd been a provider all my life, a protector, a man who handled things himself. Maybe that was stubborn pride, but it was also survival. I glanced back at the window. Leonard's silhouette was visible, standing behind the curtains. Watching me. Smiling. Something in that smile chilled me more than Martha's call. I boarded the late bus to Glendale, each stop dragging like an eternity. My palms itched, my throat was dry, and my mind was racing with questions I couldn't silence. Who could be inside my house? Why did my son laugh? And why did his wife look almost pleased? As the bus rolled down familiar streets, I thought of all the years I had worked to keep that house safe. Fixing locks, installing alarms, repairing fences. When Eleanor was alive, she used to say, "This house is your castle, Daniel. Guard it." But what good was a castle if the guards had all fallen asleep? When I finally stepped off the bus and walked down Maple Street, I froze. My house stood at the end of the block, porch light glowing faintly. And just as Martha said, the living room light was on. Through the curtains, I saw movement. A shadow. Someone was inside. I clenched my fists, every nerve screaming. But before I could take another step, my phone buzzed again. "Martha." I answered in a whisper. "Martha." Her voice was urgent. "Daniel, don't go in there. Please. I saw him. I saw who it was." My breath caught. "Who?" The silence stretched. And then, barely audible, "it looked like Leonard." I stood frozen on Maple Street, Martha's words echoing in my ears. "It looked like Leonard." My own son. My only child. The boy I had carried on my shoulders at baseball games, the boy whose scraped knees I kissed, the boy who once swore he would take care of me when I grew old, inside my house, sneaking like a stranger. Why? The question burned. And like a cruel trick, my mind dragged me back to where it all began. I was 24 when Leonard was born. I still remember the day like it was yesterday. Eleanor was screaming in that cramped hospital room, her dark hair plastered to her forehead, while I stood beside her, useless and terrified. And then the nurse placed that little bundle in my arms, red-faced, fists balled tight, lungs already declaring war on the world. "Daniel," Eleanor whispered, exhausted but glowing. "He's perfect." I looked down at Leonard and felt something shift inside me. My father had left when I was 9, disappearing into the haze of bars and excuses. I swore right then, staring at my newborn son, that I would never do the same. I worked 2 jobs those first few years, electrical by day, janitorial by night. Eleanor stayed home, pouring herself into motherhood, while I poured myself into paychecks. Every dollar went to formula, diapers, and the small, sun-faded house we bought on Maple Street. That house was supposed to be a symbol. Leonard would always have roots, always have a home. There were nights I came home so tired I could barely walk, my clothes smelling like sweat and machine oil. I'd drop into the couch, and Eleanor would put Leonard in my arms, saying, "Talk to him, Danny. He won't remember the money, but he'll remember your voice." So I'd whisper to him, even half asleep. I'd tell him about the stars, about wires and currents, about how electricity was like life, unseen but powerful. And sometimes, even as a baby, Leonard's tiny hand would grip my finger, and I'd believe he understood. As Leonard grew, I made sacrifices quietly, the way most fathers do. When he was 6 and wanted a bike like the other kids, I pawned my father's old watch to buy one. When he was 12 and dreamed of baseball camp, I took double shifts in the summer heat to cover the cost. When he was 16 and wrecked his first car, I drained the savings account I'd been building for retirement, because what was retirement compared to my son's future? Eleanor worried sometimes. "Danny, you give him everything. What if he stops learning how to stand on his own?" "He's a good boy," I always said. "He'll remember. One day, he'll take care of us the way we took care of him." I believed it. I needed to believe it. But then Eleanor died. It was a Saturday morning. She was in the kitchen, making pancakes, humming along to a country song on the radio. One minute she was laughing at Leonard's joke, the next she was on the floor. Her heart gave out just like that. The doctors said it was quick, that she probably didn't suffer. But the hole she left behind, God, it was bottomless. I sat on the front porch that night with Leonard, who was 22 by then, a man by law but still my boy in every way. He stared at the street in silence, his jaw clenched. "We'll be all right," I told him, forcing the words past the lump in my throat. "It's just you and me now. We'll hold this family together." He nodded, but he didn't look at me. And in that silence, I felt something shift. Eleanor had been the glue. Without her, the cracks started to show. Leonard changed in the years after her death. He still called me Dad, but it was sharper now, less warm. He started spending more time away, working late, he said. But sometimes I'd see him through the window when he came by, checking his phone constantly, texting Denise, the woman who would become his wife. I tried to be supportive. When he introduced her at dinner, I smiled, shook her hand, said all the right things. She was polite enough, with that long blonde hair and a voice like honey dipped in vinegar. But there was something in her eyes I didn't trust. She looked at me the way people look at an old chair they can't wait to throw away. Still, Leonard was happy, or at least he seemed happy, and that was enough for me. I walked Denise down the aisle at their wedding, gave a speech about love and family, and prayed Eleanor was watching from above, smiling at us. But as the years passed, the distance between my son and me grew. He called less. He visited less. When he did, Denise was always there, hovering like a guardrail. She didn't like me asking questions. If I reminded Leonard of a memory from his childhood, something tender, something only we shared, she'd roll her eyes, change the subject. And Leonard let her. Then came the talk about downsizing. "Dad," Leonard said one Sunday afternoon, "maybe it's time you sold the house. Move into something smaller. You don't need all that space." I stared at him across the living room, the same living room where he'd once sprawled on the carpet with Lego bricks scattered around him. "This house is paid off," I said. "It's mine. It's all I've got left of your mother." He sighed, like I was being unreasonable. "It's old, Dad. It's falling apart. You'd be better off in a retirement condo." Retirement condo. The word stung. Like I was an old dog being told to move to the kennel. I refused. But after that, I started noticing strange things. Denise asking about the deed. Leonard avoiding my eyes when money came up. Quiet conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Now, standing outside my house in the dark, Martha's words collided with all those memories. Asterisk. It looked like Leonard. Asterisk. Was it possible? Could my own son be inside, sneaking around? And if so, why? I took a shaky step closer. The curtain shifted. A figure moved in the hallway. My chest tightened, my breath quickened. I reached for the doorknob, my fingers trembling. But then, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Martha. It was a text. From Leonard. Just 5 words. "Don't go inside. Not yet." The glow of my phone lit up the darkness, and those 5 words sat on the screen like a curse. "Don't go inside. Not yet." My chest tightened. My son, my flesh and blood, telling me to stay away from my own house. I stared at the screen, waiting for another text, some explanation that would make sense of this nightmare. But none came. Just silence, and the faint shifting of shadows behind my curtains. Why was Leonard inside? Why didn't he want me to enter? I stood there, torn in half. One side of me wanted to storm through the front door, demand answers, reclaim the sanctuary I had built brick by brick. The other side, the father in me, hesitated, clinging to the memory of the boy I once knew. Because surely my son wouldn't betray me. Would he? I sat down on the curb, staring at the house. The night air was heavy, carrying the faint smell of jasmine from Martha's garden. Across the street, her living room light glowed, her curtains drawn tight. She was probably watching me from behind them, praying I wouldn't do something foolish. But as I sat there, memory after memory flooded my mind, uninvited. Leonard at 12 years old, storming into the house after losing a baseball game. He slammed his mitt on the floor, tears streaking his dirty face. "I'm no good, Dad," he cried. I knelt down, pulled him into my arms, and whispered, "You don't have to be perfect, son. You just have to keep showing up." And he had looked at me, eyes shining with belief. "You'll always be there, right?" "Always," I promised. But where was he now? The phone buzzed again, snapping me back to the present. Another message. "Please. Trust me. I'll explain tomorrow." Trust. That word had built the foundation of our relationship. I had trusted Leonard with everything. My time, my sacrifices, my dreams. I had trusted him to remember. And now he was asking for more, when every instinct in me screamed something was terribly wrong. I typed back with trembling fingers, explain now. Or I'm coming in. 3 dots appeared. Then vanished. Then appeared again. Finally, a reply. It's not safe. Just go back to Leo's house. Pretend you never came. Pretend I never came. Pretend I didn't see the lights on in my own house. Pretend I didn't hear Martha's trembling voice. Pretend my son wasn't sneaking through my hallway like a thief. No. I couldn't. I stood, squaring my shoulders. When Eleanor died, I promised myself I would never be powerless again. That I would never sit on the sidelines of my own life, letting things slip through my fingers. That house wasn't just wood and nails. It was her laughter in the kitchen, her perfume clinging to the curtains, her touch on the walls she had painted. And now someone, maybe even Leonard, was inside, unraveling it. I reached for the spare key hidden under the porch step, but before I could slide it into the lock, movement caught my eye. A car. Black, sleek, and unfamiliar, pulling slowly away from the curb a few houses down. Its headlights were off, its engine humming low. I froze, watching as it glided past me, turning at the corner until it disappeared. A chill ran down my spine. Whoever had been inside wasn't alone. I didn't go in that night. Something told me the truth would come out soon enough, and rushing blindly could cost me more than answers. So I turned, my shoulders heavy, and walked back to the bus stop. As the bus rumbled toward Los Angeles, my thoughts spiraled back through the years, searching for clues I had missed. It was the year after Eleanor's death when the first sign of betrayal appeared, though I didn't recognize it at the time. Leonard came by the house with Denise one Sunday afternoon. I had just finished mowing the lawn, sweat dripping down my back, when I saw them standing by the mailbox. Denise was pointing at the house, smiling that tight, cold smile of hers. When they came inside, Leonard asked for water, and Denise wandered the halls. She stopped at Eleanor's photo on the mantel, tilted her head, and said, "Such a shame this place is so outdated. Don't you think, Leonard?" He laughed awkwardly. "It's Dad's style. You know how he is." But her words stung. Outdated. That house was history. It was the last piece of Eleanor. Later that night, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen while I pretended to watch TV. Denise's voice was sharp, insistent. "If we could sell it, Leo, the down payment for a bigger house would be easy. It's just sitting here, wasting potential. Sell it. My home. My sanctuary. The very thing I had worked my whole life to give my son." He didn't argue. He didn't defend me. He just stayed quiet. That silence was the first crack. The second came a year later, when Leonard asked to borrow money. I didn't hesitate. He was my son. I handed him nearly $10,000, money I had been saving for repairs on the roof, for the hospital bills I knew would come with age. "Pay me back when you can," I told him. But he never did. He never even mentioned it again. And I never pressed, because pressing would mean admitting the truth, that my son saw me not as a father, but as a wallet. The third crack came the day he brought me paperwork. "Dad," he said, laying the forms on the table, "this just simplifies things. In case something happens to you, it ensures the house passes smoothly to me." I remember my hands trembling as I held the pen. "Leonard, I'm not dying tomorrow." "I know," he said quickly. "But Denise thinks it's smart. Just a precaution." Denise. Always Denise. Always pushing, always whispering. I signed it, because I wanted to believe my son cared for me the way I cared for him. But now, sitting on that bus, staring at the reflection of my weary face in the window, I realized I had been blind. Those papers, those whispers, that silence, it all led here. To tonight. When I got back to Leonard's house, the lights were still on. I stood outside the door for a long time, wondering if I should confront him now. Demand the truth. Ask him why he was sneaking through my house, why he told me to stay away. But then I saw them through the window. Leonard and Denise, sitting side by side on the couch. She was smiling, her hand on his knee. He was laughing, carefree, unbothered. As if nothing had happened. As if he hadn't sent me those texts. A rage bubbled in my chest, but I swallowed it down. No confrontation. Not yet. because something told me this went deeper than I could see. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every dream dragged me back to Maple Street, to Eleanor's ghost whispering warnings I couldn't quite hear. When the sun finally rose, I made a decision. I would stop being blind. For 58 years, I had been the provider, the fixer, the man who gave everything. But now, I would become something else. I would become the watcher. I would uncover the truth about my son, even if it broke me. The next morning, I drove to my house on Maple Street with my heart pounding. I parked down the block, staying hidden, watching. At first, nothing. The house sat still, quiet, like it had never been touched. Then, just before noon, the black car returned. A tall man stepped out, carrying a briefcase. He wasn't Leonard. He wasn't family. He walked up my porch steps like he owned the place, unlocked the door with a key, and disappeared inside. A key. Someone had given him a key. My fists clenched around the steering wheel. If it wasn't Martha's imagination, if it wasn't just paranoia, then maybe my house wasn't just being trespassed. Maybe it was being stolen. By my own blood. The black car idled in front of my house for just a moment before its engine cut. The tall man stepped out, polished shoes crunching against the gravel. He was dressed too sharp for Maple Street. Dark suit, clean shave, briefcase in hand. He walked up my porch steps like he had rehearsed it, like this wasn't his first time. And then I saw it. He pulled a key from his pocket. A key to my house. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. That key wasn't supposed to exist. I never gave one to Leonard. I never gave one to Denise. The only spare was under the porch step, and I had taken it last night. So where had this man gotten it? My heart pounded in my ears as he slipped inside, shutting the door behind him. My home, Eleanor's home, swallowed him whole. I sat there for what felt like hours, every muscle tense, my eyes glued to the front door. The minutes dragged. A few neighbors walked their dogs, none of them noticing the trespasser inside. The normalcy of it all made me feel like I was the crazy one. Finally, after nearly an hour, the man emerged. He adjusted his tie, holding the briefcase tight against his side. I couldn't stop myself. I started the car and followed. He drove with purpose, merging onto the freeway toward downtown Los Angeles. My old sedan wheezed behind his sleek black car, but I kept a steady distance, my heart in my throat. I had no plan. I didn't even know what I was hoping to find. All I knew was this. Eleanor's voice echoed in my head, soft and firm, asterisk, "Don't let anyone take what you built, Danny." Asterisk. The man pulled into an underground parking garage attached to a glass office tower. I parked 2 blocks away and walked, keeping my cap low, trying to look invisible. Inside the lobby, I caught a glimpse of him at the reception desk. The nameplate on the wall behind the counter glared back at me, Harper & Gold Real Estate, Los Angeles Division. Real estate. My stomach dropped. I ducked behind a marble column, piecing it together. Why else would a real estate agent have a key to my house? Why else would Leonard tell me to stay away? They were selling it. My house. My castle. My wife's last memory. Without me. I stumbled out of the building, air thick in my lungs. The city spun around me, cars honking, people shouting into phones, construction drilling in the distance, but all I could hear was Eleanor's laugh, her voice echoing in every corner of that house. They were selling her memory for profit. And Leonard. Leonard was letting them. That night, I returned to Leonard's home. Denise greeted me at the door, her smile too wide, too polished. "Daniel, we weren't expecting you." Her tone dripped with false sweetness, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. Annoyance. Maybe even fear. "Where's Leonard?" I asked. She hesitated, then stepped aside. "In the study." I walked in, my footsteps heavy on their polished hardwood. Leonard sat at his desk, papers scattered, his laptop glowing. He looked up, startled, guilt flashing across his face before he masked it with a smile. "Dad, what are you doing here?" I closed the door behind me. "I could ask you the same thing." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I leaned on the desk, lowering my voice. "I saw him. The man with the briefcase. The real estate office." Leonard froze. His hands stilled on the keyboard. "Dad." "You gave him a key," I interrupted, my voice cracking. "You let him into my house." "My house, Leonard." He rubbed his face, sighing heavily. "It's not what you think." My throat tightened. "Then what is it?" Denise's voice cut in from the doorway. "It's called moving forward, Daniel." I turned, my fists trembling. "Moving forward?" She crossed her arms, her smile smug. "That house is old. It's falling apart. Leonard and I have kids to think about. We need more space, better schools. You're living alone in a place that could change our lives." Her words sliced through me. "So you'll just take it? Without even asking me?" Leonard stood, his face flushed. "Dad, it's not like that. We were going to tell you. We just didn't know how." I laughed bitterly, the sound foreign even to my own ears. "Didn't know how? You mean you didn't want to hear me say no?" Denise stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You're almost 60, Daniel. Don't you think it's time to let go? We can move you into a retirement community. You won't have to worry about anything." Retirement community. Like I was already dead. Like I was just a burden waiting to be shelved. I felt the walls closing in, the betrayal suffocating me. I left without another word. Outside, the night swallowed me whole. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, shaking with rage and sorrow. My son. My only son. I had given him everything. My time, my strength, my money. And now, with the help of his wife, he was selling the only piece of me left. The house wasn't just walls and wood. It was Eleanor's garden, her laughter in the kitchen, the mark on the doorframe where we measured Leonard's height every birthday. It was where she took her last breath. And they wanted to erase it. The next morning, I returned to Maple Street. The black car was there again, parked boldly in my driveway. Through the window, I saw the man with the briefcase speaking with another stranger, both of them walking room to room with clipboards. An open house. My house. Rage burned in my chest. I wanted to storm in, throw them out, scream until the walls shook. But instead, I forced myself to step back. Because if Leonard and Denise thought I was weak, thought I was blind, then I would let them. For now. I spent the next week quietly watching. Every day, I parked down the block, keeping notes. Different cars pulled up. Strangers went inside. Some carried cameras, snapping pictures of my living room, my kitchen, my backyard. Each time, it felt like a knife twisting deeper. But it also sharpened something inside me. I had lived my life providing, sacrificing, trusting. And look where it had gotten me. Now, it was time to change. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fight like a fool. I was going to take back what was mine. One evening, as I sat in my car, I noticed a man leaving the house. He dropped something, papers, scattered by the wind. I rushed to pick them up before he noticed. When I unfolded them, my stomach clenched. They weren't just real estate documents. They were contracts. Transfer of ownership. Legal filings already in motion. And there, in bold letters at the bottom, owner of record, Leonard Mercer. My son's name. Not mine. The blood drained from my face. Somehow, without me realizing, Leonard had already taken my house. The papers I had signed years ago, just in case something happens, those weren't precautions. They were weapons. And now he had used them. I staggered back to my car, the papers shaking in my hands. The betrayal was complete. But so was my resolve. If my son wanted war, he would have it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table in Leonard's guest room, staring at Eleanor's photo. Her smile seemed to whisper through the glass. Asterisk, don't let them take me, Danny. Don't let them take us. Asterisk. I nodded, my voice hoarse. I won't. And in that moment, I made a vow. I would fight. Not with fists, not with rage, but with patience, with quiet strength, with the same stubborn resolve that had built that house brick by brick. Because Leonard had forgotten one thing. He may have stolen the deed. But the house, the soul of it, was still mine. And I wasn't done yet. I sat at the guest room desk in Leonard's house, the stolen documents spread before me. The words blurred as tears burned my eyes, but the truth was undeniable. My son already owned my house, at least on paper. The memory of my signature haunted me. I had signed those papers years ago, trusting Leonard when he said it was just a precaution. A father trusting his son. A fool handing over the keys to his own kingdom. I pressed my palms against the table, whispering to the empty room. "You've taken everything, Leonard. But you forgot one thing. I'm still alive." The next morning, I started with what I knew best, routine. When life knocks you down, you don't get up by flailing. You get up by working, methodically, patiently. So I got up early, shaved, and put on a clean shirt. I went to the diner down the street from Maple Street, the one Eleanor used to love, and sat in the corner booth with a black coffee. And I started watching. The black car came at 9 a.m., like clockwork. The tall man with the briefcase walked into my house with another couple, young, well-dressed, pointing at things with bright smiles. Potential buyers. I clenched my jaw, my fists tightening around my coffee cup. My house was turning into a marketplace, strangers shopping through memories they couldn't see. But instead of storming over, I pulled out a notebook. I wrote down the time. I wrote down the license plates. I sketched the man's face. I was going to collect everything. That evening, I took the bus downtown and walked back into the lobby of Harper & Gold Real Estate. The receptionist barely glanced at me when I asked to speak with the man I'd followed. "Mr. Sloane?" she asked, typing quickly. So that was his name. She frowned at her screen. "He's in meetings all afternoon. Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said calmly. "But I'll wait." I sat in the lobby for 2 hours, silent, unnoticed, blending into the stream of clients. Finally, I saw him, Mr. Sloane, walking briskly with 2 associates, his briefcase in hand. I stepped forward, blocking his path. "You've been in my house." He stopped, startled. "Excuse me." "Maple Street," I said, my voice low. "That's my home." Recognition flickered in his eyes, quickly masked by professional coldness. "Sir, if you have questions, you'll need to speak with your son. He's the owner of record." The word stung, but I forced a smile. "Maybe. But tell me this, did he tell you I'm still living there?" Sloane blinked. For the first time, his mask cracked. "You're living there?" I leaned in, whispering so only he could hear. "Every day. Every night. My furniture. My photos. My memories. You're selling a house that isn't empty." He stiffened, shifting uncomfortably. I saw the calculation in his eyes. An occupied house was a liability, a legal risk. Before he could recover, I patted his arm lightly. "I'll be seeing you, Mr. Sloane." And I walked out, heart pounding. Back at the diner, I flipped open my notebook and added a new section, leverage. Maybe I had signed away the deed. But Leonard and Denise couldn't erase me. I was still in that house. My name might not be on paper, but my life was written in every corner. And no buyer wanted a house with an old man refusing to leave. I wasn't powerless. Not yet. Still, leverage wasn't enough. I needed allies. That night, I knocked on Martha's door. She looked surprised to see me, her eyes tired but kind. "Daniel, are you all right?" I forced a smile. "Martha, you've always been a good neighbor. Can I ask you for a favor?" She ushered me inside, poured me tea, and listened as I explained everything. Leonard's betrayal, the papers, the strangers walking through my house. Her face hardened. "That's wrong, Daniel. Just plain wrong." "I need proof," I said. "Would you be willing to keep watch? Write down what you see. Who comes, when they come?" Martha nodded firmly. "Of course. You're not alone in this." Her words steadied me. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel invisible. The next day, I visited someone I hadn't seen in years, Charlie, an old friend from my electrician days. He had retired early after a workplace injury, but he had always been sharp, resourceful. When I told him what happened, his eyes narrowed. "They're railroading you, Danny. But you still got options. You ever heard of a life estate?" I shook my head. Charlie explained, even if the deed's in Leonard's name, if you can prove you live there and that you never intended to surrender your rights, you can fight. Courts don't like tossing old men out of their homes. Judges have hearts, sometimes. Hope flickered inside me. So there's a chance. A chance, Charlie said. But you'll need evidence. Witnesses. Documents. Anything that shows you've maintained that house, paid bills, treated it as yours. I thought of the folders in my desk, electric bills in my name, property taxes I had paid. Proof. I squeezed Charlie's shoulder. Thank you. For the first time, I felt the faint glow of a path forward. But as I walked back to the bus stop, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Stop digging, old man. You'll regret it. My stomach dropped. The words were sharp, cold. And I knew, deep down, they weren't from a stranger. They were from Denise. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Eleanor's face swimming in my mind. Asterisk. Don't let them take me, Danny. Asterisk. I whispered into the dark. I won't. I promise. And with that promise, my quiet fire became a plan. I would gather my evidence. I would watch and wait. And when the time came, I would strike, not with anger, but with undeniable truth. Because this wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about dignity. It was about legacy. It was about showing my son what happens when you betray the man who gave you everything. A few days later, I returned to Maple Street at dawn, slipping inside before anyone noticed. My house smelled the same, wood polish, faint lavender from Eleanor's old sachets. I walked through each room, my heart heavy but steady, gathering every piece of proof I could find, bills, receipts, tax records. When I reached the bedroom, I froze. The closet door was ajar. Inside, boxes had been moved. Eleanor's jewelry box sat half open, empty. Gone. My throat closed. That wasn't just theft. That was desecration. And I knew exactly who had taken it. I staggered to the nightstand, my hands trembling. Beneath Eleanor's old Bible, I found something that made my blood run cold, a manila envelope, tucked away like someone had hidden it. Inside were more papers. Legal papers. At the top, power of attorney, Daniel Mercer. My name. My signature. But I didn't remember signing this. And at the bottom, in fresh ink, the notarized witness signature was clear. Denise Mercer. I dropped the papers, my vision swimming. They hadn't just stolen my house. They had stolen me. The papers lay across my bed like poison, their sharp edges cutting deeper than any blade. Power of attorney, Daniel Mercer. The words mocked me. My signature scrawled across the bottom like I'd willingly handed over my life. But I hadn't. I pressed my fingers to the ink, trying to remember. My mind searched through years of forms, signatures, doctor visits, retirement paperwork. Could I have signed without realizing? No. My hand was steady, my mind clear. I never signed this. Denise had forged me. I closed my eyes, Eleanor's voice echoing in my head. Asterisk, Danny, you always see the good in people. Sometimes too much. Asterisk. Not anymore. The next morning, I marched back to Charlie's apartment. He opened the door in his worn flannel shirt, his limp more pronounced in the cool air. Danny, you look like you've seen a ghost. I handed him the envelope. Worse. Look. He laid out the documents on his kitchen table, adjusting his glasses. His face hardened. This is fraud. No doubt about it. Your son's wife is slick, but not slick enough. Look here, signature dates don't match the notary stamp. This is amateur hour. The anger inside me bubbled, but I kept my voice steady. So I can fight this. Charlie leaned back, folding his arms. If you bring this to a lawyer, yes. But lawsuits take money, and Denise knows you don't have much. She's betting on you rolling over. I looked him in the eye. She's betting wrong. I started gathering proof like a soldier stockpiling ammunition. I photographed the forged documents. I photocopied Eleanor's old bills, addressed in both our names, proving decades of ownership. I kept every threatening message Denise sent me, saving them on a cheap burner phone Charlie gave me. I even returned to Harper and Gold one afternoon, catching Sloane in the parking lot. He tried brushing me off, but I caught his words on my phone recorder. "Look, Mr. Mercer, I'm just following instructions from your son and his wife. If it were up to me, we wouldn't even be touching this file. It's messy." Messy. That word made me smile. Because messy could be useful. But I wasn't reckless. If Denise could forge documents, she could make me disappear on paper too. So I started keeping a journal, meticulously dated entries in Eleanor's old leather-bound book. Every move I made, every place I went, written in ink no one could erase. Today I had lunch with Martha. She saw strangers going into my house. Tonight I visited Charlie. He showed me where Denise forged the papers. Tomorrow I will see a lawyer. If anything happened to me, the truth would be right there, waiting. Still, I knew Denise wasn't going to give up easily. The proof came one night as I walked home from the bus stop. The street was empty, the lamps buzzing overhead, when a car rolled up beside me, black, tinted windows. The passenger window slid down. A man's voice called out, flat and cold, "Mr. Mercer?" I stopped. "Yes." Something in his tone chilled me. "You should stop asking questions." The car drove off, tires hissing against the pavement. My heart pounded, but instead of fear, something else bloomed inside me. Confirmation. Denise was scared enough to send warnings. That meant I was getting close. The next morning, I walked into Martha's kitchen, holding the burner phone. She gasped when she saw the text threats, the forged documents. "Oh, Daniel," she whispered, her hand trembling around her mug. "She's dangerous." "I know," I said calmly. "That's why I need your help." Her eyes searched mine. "Anything. Call the police, if anything happens to me. Show them the journal. Show them the phone. Promise me." Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded. "I promise." I placed my hand over hers. "And keep watching the house. Every car, every visitor. Write it all down." She squeezed my hand. "You're not alone in this." But allies weren't enough. I needed to get inside their world. That Sunday, I surprised Leonard and Denise by showing up at their front door. Denise's painted smile froze when she saw me. "Dad," Leonard said awkwardly, "we weren't expecting you." I forced a shaky smile, playing the part of the frail old man. I miss family dinners." For a moment, I thought Denise might slam the door. But then she smirked, her eyes gleaming with cruelty she thought I couldn't see. "Of course," she said sweetly. "Come in." Dinner was tense. Leonard kept glancing at Denise, waiting for cues. She controlled the table, the conversation, even how he poured the wine. I watched, silent, memorizing every detail. At one point, I excused myself to the bathroom. Instead, I slipped into the study. Her desk was immaculate, every folder labeled, every drawer locked. But Denise was arrogant. She left one document on top, half covered by a magazine. I pulled it out, my pulse racing. Notice of sale, Maple Street property. The closing date was set for 3 weeks from now. My house, my memories, Eleanor's legacy, slated to vanish in less than a month. I snapped a quick photo with the burner phone and slipped back to the table, my heart hammering. Denise studied me with narrowed eyes. Maybe she suspected. Maybe not. Either way, I smiled through the rest of dinner, pretending to be tired, confused, harmless. Let her underestimate me. That night, lying awake in Leonard's guest bed, I replayed every moment. The forged papers. The threats. The sale notice. They thought they'd buried me. But I wasn't buried. I was underground, waiting. And when I rose, I'd bring everything with me. The next week was a blur of preparation. Charlie introduced me to an old lawyer friend, Harold Price, a gruff man with thick glasses and a voice like gravel. When I laid out the documents, his brows shot up. "Mr. Mercer, this is fraud, plain and simple. If we take this to court, we can freeze the sale until it's resolved." Relief washed over me. But Harold raised a hand. "There's a problem. It'll take time, months, maybe a year. If your son's wife is as cunning as you say, she may try to drain your accounts, isolate you, make you look incompetent. You need to prepare for that. I will, I said firmly. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right. Let's give them hell. Every day after, I built my case. Martha gave me her logs of visitors at the house. I pulled bank records, receipts, tax payments. I even found an old photo of Eleanor and me on the Maple Street porch, date-stamped, proof of decades of residence. Piece by piece, I was reclaiming my life. But then came the slip-up. One evening, as I left Harold's office, I saw Denise's car parked across the street. She was inside, watching. Our eyes met through the glass. She didn't look away. She didn't even pretend. Instead, she smiled, a slow, poisonous smile that sent a shiver down my spine. She knew. And if she knew, she would strike. Soon. That night, back in Leonard's guest room, I sat at the desk, writing in my journal. Denise is watching. She knows I've seen the papers. She knows I have a lawyer. She will try to silence me. I paused, then added. But I am ready. The trap is set. All that's left is for her to walk into it. I closed the journal, my hand steady for the first time in weeks. Because I finally understood, I wasn't the victim in this story. I was the bait. The smile Denise gave me from across the street haunted me long into the night. It wasn't the smile of someone afraid of getting caught. It was the smile of someone who thought she already won. I sat at Leonard's desk with the journal open, pen in hand, trying to steady my thoughts. The words I wrote came slow, deliberate, like a man carving his own epitaph. She knows. She's watching. She will make her move soon. I must be ready. For once, my hand didn't tremble. The next morning, Leonard knocked on my door. Dad, you okay? Denise says you've been distracted lately. I looked up, meeting his eyes. The boy I raised was still in there somewhere, buried beneath Denise's poison. His voice was soft, almost guilty. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. He hesitated, then nodded and walked away. But in that hesitation, I saw something, a crack in the armor. Maybe Leonard wasn't completely lost. That afternoon, I decided to test Denise. I made coffee in the kitchen, humming like nothing was wrong. When she walked in, perfect as ever in her pressed blouse and gold necklace, I looked up with a smile. Denise, I said lightly, I've been thinking. Maybe I should move into assisted living after all. Give you two some space. Her eyes lit up, just for a moment, before she caught herself. Really? That's thoughtful of you, Daniel. I shrugged. Well, I've been feeling a little old lately. Maybe it's time. She tilted her head, studying me. That would certainly make things easier. I can help look into some nice facilities. Expensive, of course. But with your savings and pension, I'm sure it's possible. I forced a laugh, hiding the fire in my chest. Yes. With my savings. She smiled again, the kind of smile you'd give a man already buried in the ground. But inside, I was smiling too, because she'd just revealed her hand. That night, I slipped back to my house under cover of darkness. Martha met me at the side gate, whispering urgently, Daniel, someone's been in there again. I saw lights last night. People moving things. I nodded grimly. She's stripping it before the sale. Inside, the house looked hollow. Empty shelves. Rugs rolled up. Boxes stacked by the door. My life, packed into cardboard. But in the corner of the living room, Eleanor's rocking chair still sat, untouched. I ran my hand over the worn wood, my throat tightening. I'll bring it back to life, I whispered. I swear. Then I pulled out the burner phone and snapped photos of everything. The stripped rooms, the boxes, the shadows of theft. Evidence. When I left, I didn't look back. The next day, Denise made her move. I came downstairs to find two strangers sitting at the kitchen table, social workers, with clipboards and polite smiles. Mr. Mercer, one of them asked gently, we've received some concerns about your well-being. Your daughter-in-law said you've been confused, forgetful, maybe unsafe living on your own. Denise stood behind them, hands folded sweetly, her mask flawless. I just worry about him, she said. He's been different since Eleanor passed. I looked at Leonard, who stood off to the side, uneasy. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The social worker leaned forward. "Mr. Mercer, would you mind answering a few questions?" I smiled politely. "Of course. Ask away." They quizzed me, my name, my birth date, the president, the year. I answered each one slowly, clearly, deliberately. Then they asked me to write a sentence. I wrote in Eleanor's journal, my handwriting neat. "I am Daniel Mercer. I am not confused. I am not incompetent. And I know exactly what's happening here." When I handed it to them, their eyes flicked toward Denise. Her smile twitched. The social workers left an hour later, unconvinced but not alarmed. They promised a follow-up. When the door closed, I turned to Denise. "You'll have to try harder," I said softly. Her mask cracked for the first time. "You stubborn old man." I smiled, calm and steady. "Yes. And you're underestimating me." That night, I wrote in the journal. "She tried to declare me incompetent. She failed. Next time, she'll be bolder." The next time, came quicker than I expected. 3 days later, I woke in Leonard's guest room to the smell of gas. My head spun, my chest tight. I staggered to the window, yanking it open just as the smoke alarm wailed. Leonard came running down the hall, coughing, panic in his eyes. "Dad, are you all right?" We rushed to the kitchen together. The stove burners were all turned on, flames low, gas hissing. A pot had boiled over, spilling across the burners. Denise stood by the counter, her hand over her mouth in fake horror. "Oh my God, I must have left it on." But I saw the truth in her eyes. Cold. Unshaken. She hadn't left it on. She'd tried to kill me. That night, I pretended to sleep early. But instead, I packed a small bag and slipped out the back door. I couldn't risk another accident. Not yet. I went straight to Martha's. When she opened the door, I looked her dead in the eye. "It's war," I said. She didn't ask questions. She simply let me in. From that night on, I became a ghost. I didn't go back to Leonard's house. Instead, I lived quietly between Martha's spare room and Charlie's cluttered apartment. I kept my routines unpredictable, never walking the same route twice, never staying in one place too long. And I watched. From across the street, I saw Denise pull up to my house with movers. I photographed every truck, every box. From the shadows, I followed her to the real estate office, recording every careless word she spoke on her phone. Piece by piece, the noose was tightening, not around me, but around her. One evening, as the sun dipped low over Maple Street, Leonard stood outside my house, staring at the for sale sign. His hands were buried in his pockets, his shoulders slumped. I stepped out of the shadows. "Leonard!" He jumped, startled. "Dad, what are you doing here?" I studied him for a long moment. "I should be asking you the same." He looked down, shame flickering across his face. I didn't know it would go this far. Denise said it was just paperwork. Said it was to protect you." My voice cracked, but I held steady. "Protect me? By forging my name? By selling my home? By trying to burn me alive?" His head snapped up, his eyes wide. "Burn you? What are you talking about?" I stared into his eyes, searching for the truth. His shock looked real. "She tried to kill me, Leonard. And you've let her control everything." He stumbled back, his face pale. No, she wouldn't." "She would," I said. "And she has." Tears stung his eyes, but before he could speak, Denise's car pulled up. She stepped out, her gaze sharp, her smile tight. "Dad," she said sweetly, "what a surprise." I didn't move. Leonard stood between us, torn in two. And for the first time, I saw him falter. Saw him doubt her. It was the smallest crack, but enough to wedge open. That night, I sat in Martha's kitchen, Eleanor's journal open before me. I have proof. I have allies. And now, maybe, I have my son back. I closed the book, my hand steady. The trap was nearly ready. Now I just needed Denise to step right into it. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. Eleanor's rocking chair creaked in the corner of Martha's guest room, empty but alive with memory. I sat in the dark with her journal in my lap, reading the entries I'd written these past weeks, my map of survival, my trail of truth. I whispered to the shadows, "Tomorrow, tomorrow we take it back." The courthouse smelled of polish and nerves. My heart hammered as I walked through the doors with Charlie on one side and Harold, my lawyer, on the other. Martha had insisted on coming too, her thin frame steady with purpose. Across the hall, Denise stood like a queen, draped in silk, Leonard hovering beside her like a shadow. Her eyes flicked toward me, cold and mocking. I nodded at her, calm. Let her think I was beaten. Let her think I had nothing left. Because that was the trap. The judge was a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes. She asked Denise's lawyer to present first. He spoke with confidence, waving documents in the air. "Your Honor, this power of attorney gives my client full legal control over Mr. Mercer's affairs. Combined with the signed transfer of deed, the Maple Street property belongs entirely to Leonard and his wife. Mr. Mercer is, regrettably, confused about these arrangements." Denise folded her hands, her face the picture of innocence. The judge turned to me. "Mr. Mercer, do you have a response?" I stood, the journal clutched in my hands. My voice was steady. "Yes, Your Honor. I have evidence." Harold handed the bailiff our stack of documents, photocopies of bills, tax payments, photos, receipts. The judge leafed through them, her brow furrowing. "Interesting," she murmured. Then Harold gestured toward me. "Mr. Mercer has also kept a detailed journal of recent events, documenting intimidation, threats, and fraudulent activity." The judge looked at me. "Do you wish to read from it, Mr. Mercer?" I nodded and opened the leather book. My hands no longer shook. I read aloud the entry from the night of the gas leak. My voice cracked, but I kept going. "Denise tried to kill me. She thinks I'm weak. But I'm not." The courtroom went still. Leonard's face paled, his eyes darting to Denise. She shifted in her seat, her mask slipping. Harold wasn't done. He played the recording from Sloan in the parking lot. "If it were up to me, we wouldn't even be touching this file. It's messy." The judge leaned forward. "Messy, indeed." And then, the final blow, the photo of the forged power of attorney, side by side with Eleanor's Bible, where my handwriting was clean and consistent. "Your Honor," Harold said, "this document isn't just fraudulent. It's criminal." Denise's lawyer stammered, but the judge held up a hand. "Enough." She turned to Denise, her gaze sharp as steel. "Mrs. Mercer, do you care to explain?" For the first time, Denise faltered. She opened her mouth, closed it, then sneered. "This old man doesn't know what he's talking about. He's confused." "Stop." Leonard's voice cracked through the room. Every head turned. His hands shook, but his eyes were finally clear. "I saw what you did, Denise. The lies. The way you pushed me. I let it happen, but no more." He looked at me, tears spilling. "Dad, I'm sorry." Denise's face hardened, her mask shattering. "You pathetic coward," she spat at Leonard. The judge banged her gavel. "Enough. I've heard all I need." Her ruling came swift and sharp. The power of attorney is fraudulent. The deed transfer is void. The Maple Street property and all associated rights remain with Mr. Mercer. Furthermore, given the evidence presented, I am ordering an immediate investigation into Mrs. Mercer's actions. The gavel struck. Court adjourned. The air felt different when we stepped outside, lighter, brighter, like chains snapping loose. Leonard approached me slowly, his face streaked with regret. "Dad, I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want to try." I studied him for a long moment. My son, the boy I'd raised with calloused hands and long nights, now standing broken before me. I sighed, heavy with years. "You let her lead you down a dark path, Leonard. But you chose to stand today. That means something." His eyes welled. "Does that mean you'll forgive me?" I shook my head softly. "Forgiveness isn't a gift. It's something you'll have to earn." And I walked past him, Eleanor's journal pressed to my chest. Weeks later, I sat once more in my rocking chair on Maple Street, the sun warm on my face. The house wasn't whole, boxes still cluttered corners, Room still felt stripped, but it was mine again. Martha brought over pie, smiling as she set it on the table. "Feels good to see you home, Daniel." Charlie raised a glass of iced tea. "To the man who outsmarted the devil herself." I chuckled. "To friends who stood with me when I was alone." We ate, we laughed, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. Later, as dusk settled, Leonard appeared at the gate. He didn't step inside. He just stood there, watching me. I didn't wave. I didn't speak. But I didn't turn away either. Because some battles aren't won in a single day. Some take years. And maybe, just maybe, this was the start of his redemption. That night, I opened Eleanor's journal to the last page. I wrote, slowly, carefully. "They tried to take my house. They tried to erase my life. But I am Daniel Mercer. And I am still here." I closed the book, the leather soft beneath my hand, and whispered into the quiet house. "Rest easy, Elle. We're home." The rocking chair creaked gently, like an answer. And for the first time in a long, long while, I slept without fear. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.